Stocks on Wall Street closed Thursday session mixed, with the Dow adding 270 points while the Nasdaq ended lower as investors rotate out of tech. Asia-Pacific markets are mixed, assessing China's inflation data. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a sluggish start for our own markets. Crude prices rebound as market assess near-term supply risks against firmer U.S. physical balances. Gold holds steady as markets eye the U.S. jobs data and index adjustment weights. The U.S. Senate has advanced a resolution to limit President Donald Trump's ability to conduct further attacks after the Venezuela raid. Democrats and 5 Republicans vote to advance the war power resolution on a 52-47 vote and ensure a vote next week on the final passage. All eyes today are on the U.S. Supreme Court as it is expected to deliver the ruling on the legality of the Trump's tariffs. The administration will have to issue full refunds if the Supreme Court rules against the tariffs. And in the primary markets today, Coal India's arm Bharat Coking Coal's IPO opens for subscription today, the first mainboard IPO of 2026. The price band is between 21 to 23 rupees a piece. The company has already raised 273 crore rupees from anchor investors. It is the final trading day of the week, but make no mistake, it is not devoid of any less action. You're watching Power Breakfast right here on CNBC TV 18 in the Mumbai News Center. I am Hormas Fatakia. Let's first take a look at how the Asian markets have started off. Now, it's a mixed picture, as we were just highlighting in the headline as well. The Hang Seng is flat as flat can be, but the Taiwanese index is underperforming today. It's down 1% as we speak. The underperformance also coming from the Kospi today in South Korea, seeing some profit booking from higher levels. That index is down around 0.5%. On the flip side, the Nikkei in Japan, which was underperforming yesterday, is doing well for itself in today's session, trading with gains of around 0.5%. The Shanghai Composite too, trading just above the flat line. So barring the Kospi and the index in Taiwan, it's a relatively quiet picture across the Asia Pacific. So a mixed screen is what we are getting to see at the start of the final trading day this week. Pull up the GIFT Nifty as well. And similar to Asia, the implied open is suggesting an equally sluggish start after the sell-off that we witnessed in yesterday's trading session. Of course, we are coming on the back of 4 straight days of losses. And so, to set you up for today's trading session, our research team is here with the trade setup. The stocks should be in the news and, of course, the FNO side of things as well. First up, Gaurav is here to tell us the market cues that you need to watch out for. Gaurav, good morning. What's on your list today?
Well, good morning. If you look at market, yesterday we saw Nifty decline almost more than 1%. And the reason being that if you look at the top losers, we have got Hindalco, Jio Financials, ONGC, Wipro, L&T. So all big names were under pressure yesterday. In fact, in the last week itself, so far, we have seen Nifty declining more than 1.7%. So let's watch out if this weakness sustains in the market. But apart from that, if you look at sectoral performance also, it wasn't a good week for sectors as well. We saw yesterday, at least, we saw all the sectors were in red. All Nifty Metals, Nifty Energy, Nifty PSUs. In fact, these sectors declined more than 2%. And at the same time, on a weekly basis as well, we saw Nifty Energy and Nifty Metals continued their weakness in the weekly performance. Stock-wise, if you look at the action yesterday, although the market was weak, we saw Alkyl Amines, India Cements, Niva Bupa and Trident actually gain more than 4%. So let's see if there is any momentum which is sustained in these stocks for the today's trading session. And at the same time, we saw on the weaker side, we saw BHCL, Signature Global declining more than 10%. And at the same time, transformers and rectifiers, Schneider Electric and MDC were down more than 7%. Other than that, let's also watch out for IEX today, because today is the next hearing from Aptel on the coupling case. And let's see if anything material comes out. Last time, remember, the stock went up almost 10% on Wednesday. Other than that, we have got IRDA and Tejas Network. These companies will come up with their results for third quarter. And IPO, on the IPO front, we have got Bharat Coking Coal, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Coal India, which will be open for subscription. Other events, if you look at the global events, we'll get Trump and oil executives meet on today. Let's see if anything material comes out of that. India and US FTA deal. Now, that is also something that we will be watching out for. And lastly, we will also get the AMFI data for the month of December. Let's also not forget that the US market is a key market to watch out for, and it can actually have some grip on the Indian market as well, because as you suggested, Supreme Court has designated today as a decision day, and there may be some decision on the Trump's tariff as well. And lastly, let's also not forget about the unemployment data and non-farm payroll data, which will come from the US market. So let's see if it has any grip on the Indian market in a day-to-day.
Yes, we'll be watching out for all of that. Gaurav, thank you for sharing that with us. Sudarshan now joins in with cues from the FNO space. Sudarshan, good morning. Well, at the lowest point of the day yesterday, sharp sell-off. What's the FNO data indicating today?
It's a weak setup that we are seeing from the FNO front. And before I talk about the data and all the FI actions, do note down the 8:30 p.m. in your calendar, because that's the time Supreme Court's decision or say Supreme Court statement is expected on Trump's tariff. So have that 8:30 p.m. noted down in your calendar. Now coming, so some of the headlines from the FNO data. First, FI's additions on the short side continued even on Thursday after Wednesday. Second, Nifty has given up all the key levels, 50 DMA, 20 DMA. It's below all the important key levels. Which sector is relatively better placed? That's the financial. It has fallen also yesterday, but relative, if you compare with other indices, it's placed better. One positive point, or one silver lining, if you can talk about, PCR, that is the put-call ratio, is back into the oversold zone. If it's in the range of 0.60 to 0.69 or 0.70, we call it oversold zone. Now, what can be the range? So, for now, range for Nifty is expected 25,800 to 26,100. If we fail to hold 25,800, there is a possibility of Nifty slipping to as low as 25,500. Now coming to the flows front. In the index futures, we have seen FI selling more than 5,200 crore. In the stock futures, they have sold almost 3,300 crore. Now longs exposure has reduced to 9%. That's the recent low. On the short side, exposure has increased to 91%. Now coming to the options data. On the call side, 26,000 and 26,100 were the most active ones where we have seen call writing. On the put side, 26,100, majority of the put option writers have come out of that option. Now the addition was seen in 25,900 and 25,600. Those were the most active put option. Support 25,530. That's the 100-day moving average. Now resistance would be around 26,045. That's the 20-day moving average. As far as the Nifty Bank is concerned, support would be 59,400. That's the 20-day moving average. Resistance would remain around record high. Two stocks remain in the bank, SAIL and Samant Capital. Some of the stocks that I'll keep an eye on. First, BHEL, yesterday it was down 10%, long unwinding we have seen. Dr. Reddy's has been seeing fresh shorts and KPIT too has been seeing fresh shorts.
Sudarshan, thank you for that update there. And lastly, Ria joins in with cues with, of course, the stocks that you need to watch out for today. Ria, good morning.
Well, good morning. Let's start off with Elcon Engineering first, which has come out with its Q3 numbers. Revenue has gone up by roughly 4% on a year-on-year basis, but EBITDA has seen an increase of around 23% compared to the previous year, but margins have come down to 20% this time around versus 27% that we saw in Q3 of last year. Moving on, a lot of stocks will be in focus on the back of order wins. The first one is BHEL. They have received an LOA for a coal gasification and cleaning plant in Odisha worth roughly rupees 5,400 crores. Power Mech has received a BESS order from the West Bengal State Electricity Distribution Company for establishing 1 gigawatt hour of BESS projects, and they also have an additional green shoe option for further 1 gigawatt hour. Waaree Renewable Tech will also be in focus. They have received an LOA for a revised project capacity for 704 MW AC project. The commercial value, however, has been reduced from roughly 1,252 crores to 1,039 crores now. For Astra Micro, the JV company has bagged an order worth roughly 275 crores from the IAF for integration and installation of software in aircrafts, and RVNL will also be in focus after receiving an LOA from East Coast Railway for work tenders worth roughly 210 crore rupees. Some other stocks will also be in focus apart from these. Sagar Cements is going to sell 8.14% stake in its arm Andhra Cements via an OFS by the 12th of January, and they are going to sell up to 75 lakh shares on this front to achieve minimum public shareholding norms. Prestige Industries has entered a pact to buy a 16.38 acre land parcel in Chennai. And lastly, Bharat Forge has signed an MOU with a Germany-based company called Agile Products Robots to advance AI-led industrial automation.
Ria, thank you for sharing that list of stocks that you should be watching out for in today's trading session. We'll take a short break, get you all the cues from Wall Street on the other side. Welcome back. On to action from Wall Street. Then the indices had a bit of a mixed session yesterday. The Dow outperformed, gaining around 300 points. The S&P 500 barely budged, but the Nasdaq fell around 0.5% as investors moved out of tech names into small cap names. The Russell 2000, in fact, was up over 1% in yesterday's session. CNBC's Courtney Reagan gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were mixed across the major indexes Thursday trading, with the Nasdaq under pressure as investors rotated out of tech stocks. The Dow added 270, the S&P 500 was up a point, and that tech-heavy Nasdaq fell 104. The U.S. trade deficit in October fell to $29.4 billion, its lowest level since 2009, fueled by a drop in imports under President Trump's sweeping tariffs. New government data released Thursday showed the trade gap falling 39% in October, while imports fell 3.2%. The trade data was delayed more than a month because of the 43-day government shutdown. Defense stocks surged on Thursday after President Trump called for a military budget of $1.5 trillion in 2027. That's $600 billion above the current budget. Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, RTX, among the many defense names that moved higher on the president's comments. Those stocks rebounded after the defense sector fell sharply Wednesday after President Trump blasted executive compensation packages and said he wouldn't allow defense companies to issue dividends or stock buybacks until they speed up the production of military equipment. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
Courtney Reagan, thank you for that update there. Now, a major catalyst that investors will be keeping an eye out for today is the Supreme Court's hearing on the legality of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. This could have an impact on the trade policy and the nation's fiscal situation as well. CNBC's Lori Ann LaRocco has more on this.
We can be just hours or weeks away before the Supreme Court rules on the legality of the Trump tariffs, and importers now have to register on a new customs platform in order to be able to receive any type of refunds. Details on the new digital payment system were announced on January 2nd, and importers have until February 6th to register. If they don't, customs specialists tell CNBC importers could have delays in refunds. The new system is called ACE and was part of an executive order signed by President Trump back in March. It's designed to modernize the government payment system, which originally was manual. A decision by the Supreme Court on tariffs could come as early as Friday. CNBC has reported earlier importers have pushed back on President Trump's claim that the tariff payments would be messy because the tariff bills the importers have been paying are itemized. If the Supreme Court does rule the tariffs or part of the tariffs are illegal, the Court of International Trade has the legal authority to decide how the refunds are paid to U.S. importers.
Well, 2026 is shaping up to be a defining year for the global order. According to Eurasia Group's president, Ian Bremmer, the single biggest risk is not China, Russia or AI, but the US itself. Now, in an exclusive chat with CNBC TV 18, he spoke about the looming Supreme Court tariff ruling and Donald Trump's political agenda. Listen in.
The IEEPA clause, which is meant to be applied in a national emergency by the president, is clearly not the intention to be used against 90-plus countries for political purposes, against Lesotho. I mean, there's no national emergency in many of these cases. So I do think that the Supreme Court, at a minimum, is likely to constrain the use of IEEPA in some of these purposes. That doesn't mean that they will overturn everything. The Supreme Court is not going to give him a rubber stamp and say, you have all of this control, the president can do whatever he wants, even though most of the tariff powers are meant to reside in the hands of Congress, the legislature. In the near term, Trump's consolidation of power is leading to a number of wins for the United States. You just saw that in Venezuela, of course. You've seen it with the way that a lot of the trade negotiations have asymmetrically benefited the U.S. because the U.S. is the most powerful country. But even though the U.S. is the most powerful country, Donald Trump is not the most powerful leader. Xi Jinping is. And that's because Xi Jinping doesn't have term limits. He doesn't have checks and balances internally. He doesn't have an independent judiciary. He doesn't have a professionalized military that reports outside his structure. Trump has all of those limitations. And of course, the purpose of the political revolution is to end that. It is to ensure that the president is above the rule of law and that the U.S. political system can be weaponized against Trump's political enemies the way that he believes that it was weaponized against him in the Biden administration. I suspect he will fail. I'm not completely confident of that, but I think it's likely he will fail. There are three reasons that I think he'll fail in increasing order of importance. First is he's not very popular. He's likely to lose the House to the Democrats in November in midterm elections. And as a consequence of that, there are more Republicans that will start to think of him as a lame duck and will move away from him as president.
We'll take a short break. Here's from the commodities market on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Before we get to commodity updates, the most important stock to watch out for today is going to be IEX, and that is because the Electricity Appellate Tribunal is scheduled to hear the market coupling case today at 10:30 this morning. Ashmit is here with more details on this. Ashmit.
Well, the APTEL is all set for a hearing in the IEX case, the Indian Energy Exchange's challenge to the coupling order that had been passed by the CERC in 2025. Now, a large part of the hearings we've seen a lot of back and forth with essentially the exchanges alleging that this entire order, this entire exercise is tainted. The exchanges have been citing a SEBI report which suggests that this coupling order was nothing but, in fact, a ruse, a scheme, an insider trading ring which led to illegal gains of over 170 crore rupees in the hands of CERC officials. They point out that the very author of the coupling order is in fact mentioned in the SEBI report. Now, this was also taken note of by the APTEL. The APTEL said that the theatrics, the drama with which this order was passed has raised questions in the minds of the judges, and also going on to say that if there is foul play found, APTEL will not be shy of taking action. On the back of all of this, we had a very interesting revelation by the CERC lawyer. The CERC lawyer said that they wanted this entire exercise to be fair, to be transparent, to be consultative, and that keeping that in mind, they are now going to get a formal opinion from the Commission on whether the coupling order can be withdrawn. Now, this is critical. Now, just this comment from the lawyer led to a nearly 12-13% spike as far as the IEX share prices are concerned. We're yet to get clarity whether the Commission has decided to withdraw its coupling order. We'll get clarity in just moments from now when the APTEL takes up this case for further hearing.
Ashmit, thank you for that update. Keep an eye out on IEX in today's session. And Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. There's some rebound in oil prices this morning.
Yes, a 4% of a gain in the overnight markets. And with that, the crude prices are now trading at a 2-week highs. We've seen crude heading for a third weekly gain. It is about investors assessing developments in Venezuela. Also, the supply concerns coming in from Russia, Iraq, Iran. All of that seems to be supporting the crude oil prices. As been said earlier as well, the markets will be watching out for the U.S. non-farm payroll data. Further direction for the markets would come in from that one. While there is gain in the crude oil prices, there is also profit-taking that we have seen come in for metals. So gold and silver slightly weak ahead of that U.S. Payroll data. We also are looking at copper prices coming off its all-time highs that we saw on Monday itself. So whether it's on LME and COMEX, a bit of a decline onto that one. But gains also have come back in case of rubber prices. 9-month highs onto this one on the back of speculative buying one, and positive Chinese economic data seems to be supportive.
Manisha, thank you for all of those updates there. Rubber prices at 9-month high levels. Flashes on your screen from Donald Trump telling Fox News that they could be taking trillions of dollars worth of oil from Venezuela. Keep an eye out on all of that as well. Take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast. Bazaar Morning Call on the other side to set you up for what promises to be an action-packed trading day.